Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Hello, Aki.
Well, hello, Stevie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Feliz Viernes to you, my friend.
And happy Friday from stateside as well. Many happy celebrations.
And to you, sir. I believe somebody has a birthday this weekend.
I have no idea. What's a weekend?
A weekend is where one stops working.
Oh, I was quoting Downton Abbey.
Oh, I see. I don't
Maggie
watch Downton
Smith.
Abbey.
Of course you haven't. But I have. I'm a Yank. And it's
You're
charming.
an Anglophile.
Well, I've only seen the first season of Downton Abbey.
Okay.
I'd never followed through, but it hit all the bases for me. And obviously, Maggie Smith saying, "What's a weekend?" is going to stay with me forever.
Well, fear not, dear listeners. This is not going to turn into a Downton Abbey podcast.
No, because today's stardate is not the weekend. It's stardate 21804009.8. And we are discussing Picard Season 1, Episode 8, Broken Pieces.
Everything is broken.
Everything's broken. Everything's in pieces. Once again, they've done it with the title that means everything to everyone, because everything is in broken pieces in this episode. I don't know how they do it. They must, when they're breaking out the show, be like, and this one, we'll call this one Broken Pieces, because what's the theme? Everyone's broken.
Do you think they sit around and say, okay, you take Jurati, I'll take Picard, you take Rios, and we'll figure out what's broken with all of them and put it all together? They come up with the episode name first, perhaps?
You think they're like, this will be Broken Pieces, and now let's figure out how they're all broken. I wonder if that's how they do it. No, I feel like they probably make a big thing and they go like, how are we going to resolve these questions? We'll do it in this episode. And then they're like, we'll try to see if we can cover everything about their backstories and everything in this one episode. And that's what I feel like was done here. In Broken Pieces.
Shall we run it down?
Let's run it down. It's time to run it down.
Can you run it down for me? Talk about Picard now. Run it down for me.
Jean-Luc Picard, yes.
It was almost turning into the Friends.
Yes. So no one told you space was going to be this way. Okay, so... All right, I'll work on that spoof for some reason. Okay, so yeah, Broken Pieces. It's all about broken pieces. Everything's broken. But before we get into that, let's just talk about the cold open. It's got it does have some broken pieces. We finally get the background on all this business because we are welcome to the, I think it's called the grief world. The grief world of Aya. They never say it, but I'm going to say Aya. It's spelled A-I-A. And it's Romulan agents of the Zhat Vash, and they're being lectured to by someone. They're standing in cloaks with hoods around some kind of glowing circle. And
very witchy.
It's it's very coven-y. And they're like, the person is like, there are disturbing images. This place is where we were left by an ancient civilization to tell us what would happen if things went wrong. Now you will witness what we call the admonition. It will drive some of you mad. But for the rest of you, you will know what our mission is. Step forth and see the admonition. And we see, looking at the admonition on Aya, the grief world is... not only Narissa, whom we know is to be the super-driven Zhat Vash brother of Narek, but also her auntie.
Sister of Narek.
What did I say?
Brother of Narek.
Sister of Narek and Auntie Ramda. Narek is her brother.
Auntie Ramda.
Auntie Ramda. I don't think we knew that they were related until this moment. until this scene, right?
No, I don't think we did.
So, yeah, whatever. They clutch the glowing circle. Things go through their minds. Things blowing up. I don't know. It's not really as disturbing as I would think it would be, but I guess it's whatever. They're Romulans. Maybe they are very emotional. So things are blowing up and people are getting exploded. And there's a part where you see Data's face, which is confusing. And then it does cause several of them to go mad in pretty graphic scene. They like shoot themselves in the head, and one lady's bashing herself in the head with a rock.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lady who's like scraping her,
scraping
her face, like trying to gouge her eyes out. Narissa seems shaken, but she's not like freaking out. She's like a single tear, and Auntie Ramda is on the ground weeping, and rips out part of her hair. In grief, the grief.
She got away lightly, I think.
Yes. But then, okay, so the person who was talking to them the whole time was none other than Commodore O. So it wasn't earlier on when O was speaking to Narissa, it wasn't that Narissa was a secret agent and O didn't know. O knew about Narissa. And this sort of jives with what O showed Jurati in her mind through the Vulcan mind meld. Okay, so then later on, we're back in the present, and Narissa is talking to Auntie Ramda. Remember, she's an XB that Soji spoke to, who said, "You will become destroyer of worlds," and she's basically gives a full what's it called? What's the stupid word? Exposition. She gives a bunch of exposition. She's like, you were such a fool, Auntie Ramda, to take me and Narek in when our parents died, and even more of a fool to submit yourself for the admonitioning. But you were never truly sane, and you went crazy mad then, but you did it in a spectacular way. Yes, you were the one who ruined the Borg cube with the sheer power of your grief. But Narek has the location of the homeworld, and he's going, and I'm going to go with ships as soon as I shut down this quote. What is your quote? Look for your little lyrics, I almost said. She calls it, House of Horrors, in reference to the artifact. And she's like, you could join us if you wake up, and then she doesn't wake up. And then she contacts one of her people, and she's like, have you found the freak? And the camera cuts to Elnor, and they're like, yeah, we found him in Hugh's office. And so they go in and try to capture Elnor. It's with a stun grenade, and then 3 Romulan guards take him on. He's fighting. He's doing his best. He gets disarmed. He gets thrown against the wall. He punches. He does a flip. Tries to break a guy's neck. Doesn't work. Then they all 3 pile on, and they've got their disruptors on him. And then, pew! One person gets hit by a disruptor. Pew! Another one gets hit by a disruptor. Who's this stranger that's come to save Elnor? Pew! Third person gets hit by a disruptor. And out of the shadows, yes, who should step but 7 of 9?
7 of 9. Did you say 7 of 9?
I did. I said 7 of 9.
Yes.
She's 7 of 9.
7 of 9.
7 of 9. 7 of 9.
Yes. Oh, God.
My favorite FX that you've ever created.
Well, you know what? As I was rewatching this yesterday night or this morning, who can remember, when she does like come into the light, I was like, you know, the 7 of 9 song wouldn't be bad here. She's like, 7 of 9, slow-mo, like 80s hair. And she's like, what's going on here? Where's Hugh? And then Elnor just runs up and hugs her. And she's like, okay, weirdo. And she gives him a hug back. And that's the end of the thing, of the cold open. So that's where we start. That's how things are on the artifact. And
Yep.
Now let's get into the broken pieces of things. So the whole episode is everyone's all broke. For the first time, I remember first seeing this where Soji first comes on board with Picard and Rios sees her, and then he goes into like a weird fugue state. What was that about? It seems
super trancy. It's like he's seen a ghost.
It's like he's seen. Why Rios? You look as if you've seen a ghost. And Picard's like, hey, I need a secure thing to Starfleet.
Rios.
Get it together, bro.
Snap
And he's
out
like,
of
take
it.
me to the closest starbase. And Rios is like, I'll take you there, but then you're on your own. I'm out of here. And he keeps looking at Soji all freaked out. And then he runs away. And then Raffi shows up and she's like, where the hell have you been, Picard? You bringing this girl on board? Don't you know what's going on? Jurati turned out to be a double agent. And Picard's like, say what? I don't believe you. And she's like, we think she killed Bruce Maddox. And Picard's like, how do you know? Is it fact or theory? And Raffi's like, well, it's theory, but she had a tracker in her blood. She's a secret Zhat Vash or something. And Picard's like, okay, let's talk about it. So they go down to sickbay. They talk to the EMH. They find out that Jurati injected herself with the neuranium hydride, which canceled out the viridium tracker that was in her system. And that's when they lost the Tal Shiar ship. And then the EMH explains also that Maddox's injuries were not going to kill him, but that she, Dr. Jurati, had disactivated him. And then stopped his I have it written down, hematic micro repair treatment that had been stabilizing him, causing him to die. And Picard doesn't want to believe that Jurati's in on this. He's like, she was grieving. Maybe it was accidental. Maybe she didn't know about the tracker until they had a tail, and Raffi's not buying it. She's like, I don't know. It seems like she's there. And what do you know about Soji? What does Soji know about herself? You keep trying to do these things and you're going to get us in more and more trouble. And Picard's like, whatever. And Raffi's like, fine, I'm out of here. And then Picard's like, where are you going? And she's like, I'm going to go rub it in Rios' face and see if that feels better because you suck. So Picard winds up contacting Admiral Clancy and tells him the whole story. And this has the two quotes that I chose for this show are in that scene, which I will get to later. But basically, she tells Picard, stop wasting my time. I'm sending a fleet to meet with you. We believe you. Get to DS-12 and we'll go from there. On the bridge, Raffi thinks she's talking to Rios this actually part of the whole broken thing is that Raffi is talking to all the broken parts of Rios.
Yep.
As she's piecing together her broken theory from years before when the Mars thing happened, which I thought was a cool thing. I loved the writing between Raffi and the Rioses.
Yes. I loved the moment where they had them all together.
That's the great. She eventually goes like, what the fuck is going on here with the navigator and the Scotty version in engineering and hospitality guy and is the hospitality guy the one that leans in too close? It's the close talker. Because when she talks to him in her bedroom, he's like constantly, I think Rios could use a confidant. And she's like, ugh. Anyway, and then there's the guy who doesn't really speak English, only speaks like Spanish. And am I missing someone? 1, 2, 3, 4.
The Irish guy?
Irish guy.
Is the Irish guy?
He's not,
Is he the doctor?
Is he the doctor? The doctor, I think, is just straight up the doctor is slightly British.
So we got the British guy, we've got the Irish guy, we've got the Scottish guy, we've got the Spanish guy.
And then I think we just have, the Irish guy is navigation.
That's right.
Yeah, because he's like, ask me about, let me see. I forget. He does the accents very hard. And everyone knows who listens to this podcast that I'm Irish accent blind. So I never hear an Irish accent.
You are,
but
yeah.
I heard this one because it was heavy.
No, the Scottish one was heavy.
They're all heavy. The engineer, the Irish one was super heavy. And the Scottish one was crazy heavy. But the Scottish one feels like obviously trying to be a Scotty.
The Scottish one was terrible.
Well, you're going to be upset about it, but then you shouldn't watch the original series because all you're going to get is that's why he sounds like that. That's the only reason they would make him a Scottish engineer.
Right. And obviously the original Scotty was Irish. James Doohan. Doohan or Doolan? I forget.
I don't know. Doohan. It's Doohan.
Okay.
Yeah, with an H.
Doohan. I thought it was Doohan.
Doohan. James Doohan.
Don't know how Americans say it.
Know how Americans say it. Listen, obviously, it's the kind of thing that you can, but you cannot say, to quote the episode.
Oh, God.
And so she's talking to that one, and she's asking about, hey, what's up with, I saw this weird, all the XBs that are Romulan are making this 8-pointed thing. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's kind of like a weird star system thing that is made, but it's not really naturally happening. I don't know how it could occur. And then Raffi talks to the Scottish one. I was thinking about writing down all their names because I know that they are mentioned. I know one is called Enoch. And one is, they all have like names that start with E. I'll work on that for next week. And then she talks to the navigator. She talks to the engine guy. Anyway, she's putting together this whole concept for this octenary planet system, why it would exist, who would make it, how it could exist. And eventually she's like, oh, I had been thinking that the conclave of 8 were 8 people who had been a conspiracy to create the attack on Mars. But what if it referred to the place that they were meeting? And why would you put 8 suns in the, so the octenary system is 8 suns in the sky together in a system with a planet somewhere in the middle? Why would you do that? And she realizes, if you really wanted to get somebody's attention, to leave them a warning. Anyway, I kind of like inhaled dust just let dust in the room.
What do they call that? A glottal closure or something?
I'm having a glottal closure, and you guys should come by. We're having a glottal closure tomorrow, like around 3, and bring beers and like whatever you want. It's BYO. I'm done. Okay, so back on the artifact, Elnor and Seven go down back to the Queen Cell, and Seven, these are the pieces that Seven is dealing with. She realizes this is the Queen Cell, and she's like, I'm going to turn this stuff on, and Narissa's going to try to kill all of the XBs and Borgs in stasis. And then Seven is like, listen, I can steal the cube, or I can explain it to you. And then Elnor's like, okay, we'll steal the cube. And then Seven's having this sort of debate within herself, because like hooking back up and making herself the local queen of like what she calls a micro collective or a mini collective. She doesn't know that she then would be able to stop. It's like a drug. So pieces of Seven in that. Meanwhile, on La Sirena's mess hall, Picard and Soji are talking, and Picard tells Soji about Data and how Data made him laugh and how he tried to express emotion. And Soji wonders if Picard thinks Data knows how Picard felt, and Picard says, I don't know. I didn't display emotion too well either. And she says, what do you think if Data would see him now? What would he think about you? And Picard says he thinks he would see him as someone who believed in him and his potential and celebrated him and counseled him and tried not to get in the way. And Soji, after thinking about this, says, well, then maybe Data loved you after all. That was when, yes, thereafter, Raffi runs into Ian, the emergency engineering hologram, and the hospitality hologram is apparently just called Mr. Hospitality. Hello. Oh, and that's when she finds out that these pieces of Rios were created because when he got La Sirena, he went for self-scan for the EMHs and made them all in his image, and then like randomly edited what they knew and didn't know about him, but he's the base model for the 6 or the 4 subsets or whatever it is.
Feels a bit like Harry Potter and like Voldemort when he splits himself off. A little bit.
Exactly. They're like Horcruxes but Horcruxes for trauma, which we'll get to later, because Rios is in his cabin and he's drinking because he's locked himself away and set all the EMHs to, or the EH, all the holograms. They're EMH, EEH, ENH, whatever. He's drinking and he's taking out an old footlocker full of memories from his old ship, the Ibn Majid. And he's looking at his old uniform, and he doesn't want to talk to Raffi when she tries to talk to him. And he finds an old photograph of him with his former captain, whose name is
Alonzo Vandermeer.
Alonzo Vandermeer, who sounds like he plays for the 1990 Cleveland Cavaliers. And at center, your Cleveland Cavaliers, Alonzo Vandermeer.
Is that a hockey team? Or?
That's a basketball team, but it's fine. It's all right. And listen, sometimes you can, but you can't say. And then I just like that also was said in a terrible Scottish accent. There's a drawing that he pulls out of someone who looks suspiciously. There's a drawing he pulls out of someone who looks suspiciously like Soji. Dun dun dun. Why, my dear Cristobal Rios, you look as if you've seen a ghost, sir. I've seen her before. Her name is Jana. No, her name's Soji. Oh, no. Her name is Jana, I swear. I have seen her before on the Ibn Masjid. Anyway, Moving on, Picard's in the holodeck, and he's there with Raffi, and Raffi has assembled the entire holographic crew because she is trying to put together the broken pieces of Rios to help her put together the broken pieces of what's going on there. And so they're able to figure out sort of like that Rios met Soji before, that her name was Jana. They recognize it has something to do with Captain Vandermeer. The emergency tactical hologram, he's the one who falls asleep all the time and I think only speaks Spanish, and his name is Emmett. I did my job.
Good job.
I just didn't do it properly. Should have made a list. Apparently something happened and Vandermeer killed himself, died by suicide, and the Ibn Majid's logs were classified. So though all the holograms are based on Rios and they know that there's something there, they don't know what it is. Hence, sometimes you can, but you cannot say.
Sometimes you can. You know what that means.
Yes, I know what Ken means. I looked it up.
Oh, okay, fine. I'm sorry.
I didn't know what it meant until I looked it up.
You didn't ken what it meant.
I didn't ken what it meant. And so Ken can be, hey guys, welcome to Aki Learns a little bit about Scottish Corner. So Ken can be present tense, past tense, like I didn't ken. But also I didn't. I before I didn't ken.
Well, there's didn't. I didn't ken. But it sounds very similar to didn't ken.
Yeah, tell me about it. So I didn't ken what ken meant, but now I do ken. Now I can. Thank you.
Good job.
Here endeth the lesson. Okay. Meanwhile, Jurati regains consciousness. Picard is looking down at her. She asks if it worked. He says yes. He says they're headed to Deep Space 12. And then when they get there, she has to surrender herself for the murder of Maddox. He asks her why she killed him. She says she had to, basically revealing the whole thing that happened in the cold open of the last episode, that did this mind meld with her. And she says poisoned her mind and put in a psychic block to prevent Jurati from talking about it, which is why our joke when we talk about this season is that Alison Pill is constantly crying because she's constantly unable to tell everyone that she's betraying them. And they also put that the tracker in her. So they have a whole conversation about hell and blah blah blah, and says that that's what O showed her, and that that she's been feeling suicidal, and she thinks that it was a memory, but she says it might have happened a long time ago, but that it was something that could happen again. And then they're like, what could make it happen? And then Soji comes in and says, it's me, I'm Seb Cheneb, the Destroyer. Meanwhile, Rios has fallen asleep listening to Billie Holiday's In My Solitude. You haunt me. Raffi enters and replicates a cup of coffee, and she's like, hey, what's the deal with Captain Alonzo Vandermeer? And he says, okay, here's my relationship with Vandermeer. Let me put all the pieces together for you. He was like a father figure to me. I used to call him Pop in my head. I never guessed he'd become a cold-blooded murderer. They were out patrolling the Vate sector. I forgot to write down how they say that. They picked up a small ship. They didn't recognize it. It had 2 passengers on it. They alerted Starfleet of a first contact. They beamed the 2 beings aboard. There was an ambassador named Beautiful Flower and an aide by the name of Jenna. They shook hands. They sat down to eat. And then Vandermeer killed them. Apparently, he'd gotten a black flag directive from Starfleet to kill them. And if Vandermeer disobeyed, they'd blow the Ibn Magic out of the sky with all hands. And so Rios confronted his captain. He said, why did you do that, sir? Pop, why did you kill him, father figure? And Vandermeer, unable to live with himself, put his phaser in his mouth and pulled the trigger. And then Rios, the dutiful son, covered it all up and did everything that Starfleet asked him to do. And then 6 months later, he was discharged from Starfleet for post-traumatic dysphoria. And then Rios shows, not Jurati, Rios shows Raffi the drawing of Rios and Jana, who looks exactly like Soji. And then Raffi realizes, hey, Beautiful Flower and Soji, they were synths, y'all. Can we do the synths thing?
Warning. Synthetic
life form. Yeah, they were synths. So at the same time that's happening, Jurati and Soji are talking, and they're talking about like, hey, you know, whatever. Jurati's taking like a professional interest of wonderment at Soji, and she's remarking on the beauty of her design as she has beauty marks and moles. And she says their artistry, and they mention Noonan's song and how he thought he was an artist, and and Soji says she has a crooked pinky toe, and Jurati's like, oh, that's amazing, you're a technical wonder of art. And but Soji's like, do you think I'm a person? And she knows that O told Jurati to kill her. And she's like, I'm not going to let you do it. And Jurati says, now that I've met you in person,
Person.
I would never do. That's right. I said person.
I know. Just underlining it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And aboard the artifact, Narissa is starting to kill all the XBs, and so Seven's like, forget it. Pew, 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 pew. Vent them all into space. Pew, 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 pew. So in the Queen cell, Seven's like, forget it. I've seen these life signs fade. I'm linking up to the cube. Boom. She creates her mini collective, and that's when Narissa tries to vent all the drones. Soji and Jurati come out of sickbay, and everyone's waiting, and Jurati says, hey, look, I'm done murdering people, and I'm going to turn myself in at DS-12, and she's like, you guys are the closest thing I've ever had to a crew, and I'm so sorry about it. Meanwhile, Rios, who's still in like kind of a weird state, but has pulled himself together, orders a cup of peppermint ice cream and a plate of French fries, and he gives them to Soji, and he's remembering his experience with Jana, and then Raffi explains how she put it all together, that 200,000 years ago, suns were brought together at a planet in the center. The Romulans called the admonition as a warning against allowing synthetic life to grow, and the Romulans took the warning seriously, and that's why they created the Zhat Vash. And then Noonyan Singh started creating things like his droids, and the Zhat Vash decided that they were going to do something about it, so they put a half Vulcan, half Romulan in Starfleet, Commodore O, and that person was in charge of taking care of all the stuff that they had to take care of to stop the Federation from researching life forms, and that's why they created the attack on Mars to invoke fear within the Federation people, and that when the Ibn Majid made contact with those pair of emissaries, Jana and Beautiful Flower, things went crazy. And Soji knows of Jana, but she doesn't know how. And Rafi's like, I know how you know how. It's the same reason I know how you like peppermint ice cream and you were going to dip your French fries in it. It's because I met you before and you're the same person. And
do you want to catch your breath there?
Yeah, and the Zhat Vash have been looking for them ever since. This makes Soji incredibly angry. And she storms off, and she goes to the bridge, and she brings La Serena's online, and then she blocks off the bridge with the force field, and she's like, forget it, man, I'm going to take us to the home planet, we're not going to DS-12, and she somehow finds a place in the Borg transwarp thingy-majig, transwarp conduit network.
Passage conduit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's 9 hours away at top speed, and she knows, so she's like, let's go. And then Rio starts singing a weird song that his mother taught him when he was a kid that allows him to take back control of the ship. So he has override. But they all decide, you know what? We're going to go where Soji wants to go, even though whatever, our ship could get ripped apart in this transwarp conduit. But they're like, let's do it. It's my ship. And Soji's like, thank you for doing this for me. And then Narissa's like, on the artifact / cube, and she's getting ready to travel to the home world because she thinks all the Borgs have been jettisoned. And then she's ambushed by a group of XBs who take her down, and her guy, I forget what his name is, I didn't write it down, her number 2, or her number 1, if you will. And they're about to take her down, but then she's able to beam safely away to the Romulan ships, and they go to warp. And then Seven, speaking for the mini collective, says the cube is ours again. And then Elnor's like, are you gonna assimilate me now that you have the cube? And then the cube is like, Annika still has work to do, which is an echo of lines from what Narissa said to her auntie when they first became Zhat Vash after seeing the admonition. She says, we have
work to do.
Yeah, it's just something like that. We have to do our work. I skipped right over it, baby.
We've got our work. Well, I can't remember.
I would like to find it. We have... I didn't write it down. I said work to do. Maybe that's what she says. So maybe it's just fully an echo of that. And so she disconnects from the mini cube. Anyway, Serena goes to warp. Picard has a memory of being young and loving space and being alone, and how he tells Rios that he knew Vandermeer when Vandermeer had been number one to a classmate of his, Marta. I don't know what I wrote there. Battens. I don't know. I wrote that hastily. So, but it was a classmate at the academy, and then he asks Rios. He and Rios sort of talk about Vandermeer, and they come to some sort of agreement. And then Picard says that he thinks that Rios is a good man, and Rios says, "I think so too." And they're like, "Why are we going to go here? The ban is this Zhat Vash thing. This has to be a trap. Like, we know where we're going. They know where we're going. Why are we going to do this?" And they're like, "Of course it's a trap." And they call it Soji the Destroyer. So they're going to do something about it. But Picard's like, "I'm going to give a speech, and I'm going to tell you there's one way to combat these dire predictions of what might happen. It's with openness, optimism, and spirit of curiosity. Meanwhile, the Zhat Vash only have fear and secrecy, I think." And then Soji shows up, and she's like, "Hey, we're here at the transwarp conduit." And then she takes out the compass that she got from Wrecker's daughter. She looks at it. And then Rios takes them in. And they're followed by a tiny Romulan scout ship.
And scene.
And scene. And that's the episode. It's a little crazy. Broken pieces, a lot of pieces. Thoughts?
We're getting near the
Comments,
end.
concerns?
It's getting good. There's a lot to unwrap.
Oh, yeah. Well, these were, like, we got so
starting to
many
get
answers
all the-
to the,
Yes.
like questions, but then I feel like only so that we can rush headlong into whatever this climax is going to be.
Exactly. It does feel like you're kind of finally going to meet the baddie and then have that climax, as you say.
Right. We're like, okay, Bruce Maddox, we thought was the main thing that they wanted to find for forever. They finally found him. Jurati killed him. And then they're like, all right, well, he helped them find Soji. So they find Soji, and they get her out away from the Romulans. And then we're like, whew, that worked. But then we find out that Soji's got to go home for some reason. And the Zhat Vash are still chasing her. And now we find out it's because there's this prophecy and everything's screwed up. And then Rios met her before. And that the person who calls Soji Seb Cheneb is the auntie of Darissa and Narek. And like everything's all on top of itself.
Mm. So at this point, I don't remember what I thought for the first time. And to be honest, it's probably been a year since I watched.
I think it's literally been a year for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So in terms of the civilization that left the relic with the warning,
Right.
Who did we think that was? Like, what theories did you have for this?
I was very curious about that because they said it was a great civilization that left this warning because they got overtaken by robots, I guess. But from like where I have it in my notes because Raffi's like, oh, it was from like 200,000 years ago or
I don't
something.
remember.
Some 200,000 to 300,000 years earlier, those suns were brought together, and it was the admonition was created. So I don't know. I mean, it's very curious.
Perhaps we will.
Perhaps we'll find
it's
out
all a ruse.
On season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. Well, I'm wondering too, like, what's the deal?
Season 2 of Star Trek Picard.
Well, I was thinking that
I
Discovery
see.
likes to hop around through time, so maybe they'll bounce back
That's true.
400,000 years earlier to the end of a highly advanced civilization, years before Earth, but they wouldn't do that. I don't know. It's a curious question. I wonder if they'll explore that. I mean, we do know that Q is going to be involved in season 2 of Star Trek Picard because of First Contact Day.
Yay! And we think that the trial of humanity continues.
The trial never ends, apparently.
Indeed.
So I'm curious what Q will have to say to Picard, but we don't want to give too much away because we still haven't got to the end of season 1. But we now know that that's coming out. We know that Lower Decks season 2 is coming out. We know that Discovery season 4 is coming out later this year. Didn't get a specific date. And we know that Strange New Worlds is premiering next year.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot
And
of
we know
Star
that they're
Trek.
starting a new movie with J.J. Abrams at the helm
We
once
do
again.
know that. Yes.
Many
Yes.
things.
Lens flares.
news.
Womp, 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 womp. That's my sound for lens flares from J.J. Abrams, Star Trek's. Shall we move on to quotable moments?
Yes. Quotable moments.
Well, I have my
Right.
two.
I have two as well, actually.
Well, I'll start with mine, which is rooted in classical literature. It's when Picard is talking to Admiral Clancy's like, that was a hell of a report. And Picard says, when you thought I was a desperate old man, quixotic, paranoid, possibly senile. And then Clancy says, well, we can just leave it at quixotic. And then Picard says, and now the windmills have turned out to be giants. Because quixotic comes from Don Quixote.
I didn't even know what that meant, to be honest. I was in the dark.
It delighted me because I'm a big fat nerd.
I will pick a quote or an exchange between those two also. So Picard says to Admiral Clancy, if you say this isn't a job for Starfleet, then I'm sorry, but you're a waste of space. And then Admiral Clancy says, Admiral Picard, with all due respect, and at long last, shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up.
Fuck up. We don't get to swear on this show often, but when we do, it's fun.
That was my other quote. I did like, it's a good bit of acting from Alison Pill when they're talking and she's asking Soji like, hey, do you sleep? And Soji's like, every night. And she's like, you sleep every night? My God, what do you eat? And Soji's like, yeah, when I'm hungry. And she's like, what do you do when you're sad? And Soji says, cry. And Jurati says, thirsty. And Soji says, drink. And then Jurati says, you drink when you're thirsty. That is so beautiful. It's almost up there with, oh, computer, show me the pain that I had in the thing. I forgot what that quote was. I should have written it down.
Oh, no, not Saru's quote. No, not Saru. Who was the other thing?
Oh, computer. Not the child who created the burn. I forgot their name. We're hopping all over the place with Discovery season 3. But anyway, I like that. You drink when you're thirsty.
I had one more.
What do you? Oh yeah, that's right. Please, what's your second one?
It was Narissa. I'm afraid I broke your gun. Someone get me another weapon.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I like that so much, but I did.
I'm afraid I broke your gun. That's it. And I also liked when 9 said, I mean, it's so weird because you don't like the Borg for so long, but then when 7 says, we are Borg.
You kind of want them to win, don't you?
Borg. You go, yeah. We've really come around on the Borg because isn't that an interesting journey? Talking about broken pieces, like 7, we recently watched some episodes of Voyager with 7, but like goes from really being a Borg to really striving to find our humanity, not unlike Data, only to find humanity through suffering and pain and the loss of friends and fighting for a cause that as a Fenris Ranger is possibly, hopeless and committing imperfect acts like not being so morally above, like killing someone who killed someone she loved. And then she finds herself returning to the collective to create a new collective, to become a queen herself out of compassion for the individuals who had been turned into Borg. I mean, what the fuck? They're broken pieces too.
Oh my God, you're so right. Oh my God.
It's allergy season in New York, so I just inhaled like so much tree dander. But yeah, I don't know. This was a great episode. There were a lot of cool things in it. A lot of like the undercurrent things were amazing as well, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, shall we talk about next time?
Let's do it.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Oh, yeah. Next time on Set Phasers. I may have forgotten to write down the name of the next episode. Got it. Oh, because it's really... 1 second. Please cut that out.
Thank God we're not live.
Well, you're the one who had me doing huge gasp takes for no reason.
I did not. You did them voluntarily.
I did one, and then you did a thing and made me want to do more. So it's your fault. You're the adult. Okay, so next week we will begin the final 2 episodes of Star Trek Picard Season 1. They are Part 1 and Part 2 episodes, and the first one is called, well, they're both called the same thing. But anyway, it's called Et in Arcadia Ego. And I do believe I'm saying that right, because I have started taking Latin lessons. I'm 4 lessons in.
Have you really?
I have, because I literally don't have much to do. I mean, I have tons to do.
Ego is I am. S is and in Arcadia, I have no idea. And in the something I go,
think it's
I
in
am?
Arcadia, I am, yeah.
Yeah, okay, there you are.
I forget why Arcadia is important. I think that's a reference, a specific classical reference.
Probably.
Having to do with arriving in a place of strange wonders. I wonder what that could mean.
I wonder
what that could mean.
Why?
In any case,
I don't know.
I wonder what it could mean. Anyway, Et in Arcadia Ego, Part 1, next week. Until then, thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoy the program, you can catch us as a podcast. Every Monday, we put up new episodes wherever you get your podcast from. And please, please, please tell your friends about us. Rate and subscribe us.
Do. We want to hear all about what you think of our lovely show.
Yes.
And tell your friends what you think of our lovely show also. We are, of course, on the Facebook and the Instagram. We are at Set Phasers and at Set Phasers Podcast, respectively, I believe, or if not, just try it around, you'll find us. So please join us for conversations about all things Trek and Mean Game Strong hashtag. Yay.
Mean Game Strong. And this is James Mason. If you want to support our continuing mission to discover what Discovery has in store for us, we'd only be delighted. You can patronize us, we can take it, by going to patreon.com/ZetPhasers.
Well, until next time, I'm Stevie Mans.
And I'm Aki Burmese, and this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.